what day it was all day. I looked at my phone as we were starting, and I said,
remind myself daily.
It's Tuesday. It's Tuesday. So if you're keeping score at home, it's Tuesday. If you needed to know that. I needed to know that. You get to a certain point in training camp, and you've actually played football through 10 training camps, then college training camps, and, high school training camps. Yeah. At some point, did you literally have to, look at somebody and go, what day is it? I have no idea. Did it run together ever to that point?
Absolutely. And what I did was I didn't care what day it was. I just started saying, I'm going out here to practice to get better. I was only, that's like focusing on 50 billion things.
Right.
No, how many days you got to the game? That's all I need to know. What day it was didn't matter. It's like, when is the game? How do I have to prepare? What do I want to get better at each and every day? Just grinding. Really just focus on that. You lose really grasp of, days, what's going on in the world. That's why I always think it's fascinating when they ask players, about some question that's going on in society. They haven't been paying attention. Now, social media has increased that, but they're not indulged, and dove deep into it. They don't know. They just giving an opinion from afar. That's why I always think it's fascinating to see LeBron do stuff like that. Like, hey, man, you better make sure you got all your information correct. So, days, it's kind of still the same today. I'm just preparing for the show, get ready, and then I remind myself right before I say, Happy Tuesday.
What day it is.
It is, yes. I remind myself that it's Tuesday. And actually, I'm going to tell you a little cheesy. I write it down.
Oh, my gosh.
I put today's Tuesday.
Okay.
Yeah.
Fantastic.
So I don't mess up. Because that is like one of my words that I say, Happy Wednesday, and it's Tuesday.
I was at a concert one time, and a singer came out and said hello to the wrong city.
Oh, see?
Yeah. We were in Memphis, and he said, hello, Chicago or something.
Oh, man.
Yeah,
that's the worst, man. But you were out of practice today, so they all knew what day it was, as well as you did eventually.
I did. Each of the quarterbacks threw an interception today. There was a trifecta. Each one threw an interception.
Whoa. Give me a little context on that, though. Like, were they tip balls? Were forced? Was it a scramble? And it was just kind of, let's see if I can squeeze it in. I read Tannehill's was in the red zone, correct?
Yeah, that's it.
Byard.
Yeah.
Right. So that cost you points.
Yep.
Yeah, that's pretty big there, my man Tanny. So there was no Tanny time. Yeah.
His was Byard. Matthias Farley got Woodside, and I think that was tipped, but I can't remember who.
Matthias Farley is the backup special teamer from the Jets, correct?
Yep, who was the special teams captain.
He's
for
a
the
pretty
Jets.
good player, by the way.
He's going to mess around and be a backup safety and a special teams guy on this team.
Well, yeah, I think he's going to have a little bit more than that. When they go to nickel dime, depending on how they do it, he may be the safety comes in unless they keep Hooker up top, and maybe he comes in the box guy, kind of interchangeable. But it'll be interesting to see if he does. I haven't watched him at practice or anything. I just know his ability from the Jets because I watched the Jets. Last couple years really. They always had pretty solid defense.
Yeah. And Brady Breeze got Barkley in a team drill.
Oh.
And it was said that he tipped it to himself, but he just got his hands on it and took it. Hey, that was a pick six. He was out on the perimeter.
Oh, so B Square finally got some his hands on the ball, made a play.
He did.
Oh, well, good. I mean, hopefully that'll help his cause. Well, he'll get a lot of chances here in the preseason. That's one thing that nobody's talking about. What, from the Titans' point of view, maybe the Falcons may be a little bit different because he's trying to set the tone there. New head coach, they may want to play his starters a little bit longer, but how much are the starters going to play, if at all? How many snaps? If you do, how much do you want to play A.J. Brown or Tannehill or Julio or whoever? Maybe you don't play him at all because it's 3 preseason games. Then you're right into a 17-game season. So that's something that, as a head coach, you're thinking about all those things. Besides now you're focused on how you're going to do the rest time and what days off, what's going to be the plan for Henry and other players along the line of veteran players. Now you have to manage them during the season, and does it start in actually preseason?
Yeah. Mm-hmm. How much did you want? This is 4 preseason games because the 3 just happened this year. Did you have in your mind, I want to play this much week 1 and this much week 2 and this much week 3, and then don't even ask me to play in week 4? Did you have Did you have, as you went on, like the veteran version of you?
I was going to say, to be honest, you act like I had a part in the decision. I really appreciate that.
The veteran version.
But yet no veteran has. They could talk about all that, what they have no basis on any of that.
Okay. Well, did you have a picture in your mind of how you wanted it to go?
No, I've really found it when the transition happened when I'm a veteran now. I've been in the league 3 or 4 years as a starter. You start saying, okay, I only need so many snaps and I don't want to get injured. So
right.
You're thinking I'm trying to maintain. Then you go out there and you're kind of playing hard, but you're not playing like it's a real game because you're playing like it's a scrimmage. So then I almost got rolled up on and it almost cost me. So then I was like, anytime that I'm on the football field, I'm going full blast like it's a regular game. It's a regular game. And so whatever the coaches decide on for the players, for the veteran players, is what I did. I was never a guy that, like all this managing people's body, that never happened to me. Now, credit to Coach Fisher. He managed the starters or the veteran players a little bit better. Be like, hey, and the coaches, your position coaches knew, today you're not going to be doing 7-on-7, or you may only do 2 snaps. We're going to let the 2s do a lot of the reps today, or your backups.
Right.
And select positions. And then so practice wasn't a full practice. There wasn't a time that I was just saying, they said, Blaine, you have today off. That never happened in my career, ever. That just wasn't much. But Fisher ran his practices where they wanted you out there. You wanted the leaders out there at each position group, veteran, and to coach up players at the same time. So you're still out there standing. So I don't know what was worse, standing or running around, but it's always cool to not be out there running around.
Yeah.
So basically, I was kind of like how they do Derrick Henry, but
yes.
just not for that many days like that.
Okay.
Maybe a day here or two in training camp, but nothing where you have a day off. Even when they had special teams, I used to be like, why am I out here? And I wasn't on special teams, but I was a backup on all the special teams.
Right.
Because that's what happens, in the league when you only have 2 strings. So, yeah. So even the day off where most veterans are sitting at home or in their bed at the hotel in between, I was out there, just getting a tan.
Did you have – how far down the depth chart were you on what would have been the Music City Miracle play? Because I've heard all you guys talk about that. Like at some point during the season, everybody got run through that home run.
Yeah, I definitely was one of the guys during the season when we practiced it every Saturday that actually was one of the guys catching the ball, running it. I wasn't very far. It was getting close. When they started looking at me, they start saying, we're in trouble. We're not sure if you can catch it if they throw it to you. I said, well, at least if I drop it, it's still a legal play.
It's a lateral. You pick it up.
It's a legal play. Yeah, right, because it's not like I'm going to drastically drop it. If I drop it, it's going to go right to the ground. Yeah. So, no, I was definitely on the punch list. Yes, I was.
See, I've never asked you that.
Yeah,
never
you had
one time. I've never asked you that.
I was definitely on the punch list. Yeah. Man. Trust me, and it got down there till it got to me. It was getting close. I started saying, huh? What? Oh, man. Really? Okay. Let's go.
Like, were they starting to instruct you?
Yeah,
Did it get to that point?
They didn't have to instruct me because we've done
right.
it. Everybody played pretty much every position. So, no, I was about one more, person to say no after. If Dyson would have said no and then another person said no, then it was me.
Could you imagine the Hitman, the Music City?
Oh, that would have never happened. I would have got caught or I would have dropped it or something. Yeah, I was kind of in the Lorenzo Neal. It was funny how that all happened when I just kind of started tearing up my form, fingers and hands and all the surgeries. I used to have great. I mean, I was on the hands team.
Yep.
Always recovering early in my career, and then as time went on, playing in that 46 defense just screwed my hands all up. So and everybody always makes fun of that one finger, but man, I have my wrist knot right there is way above the rest of it's not online. I have a hand surgery, but pins in it.
Was that your bowling ball?
So it was like 3 or 4 years in it. I'm playing with a cast on in a row. Yeah. So it was nonstop. It was like, dang, oh man, this is horrible. And then one time it was just because of my finger, and then they put pins in it, and I had to wear a ball fist cast. So it was like, you can't protect your finger. That's why, like most receivers, they say, well, he's out.
Right.
You can't catch. You can't. What are you do?
You can't cast his hand.
A defensive player, they go, well, you can still tackle. So it was, that wasn't fun. But yeah, you got to do what you got to do. So yeah, it's a little, it's a different era in time too, though. So I don't know if some of those guys are playing or not. A lot of big dough being splashed around out there, man.
if somebody had told you then, here's what people are going to be making, and some guys are even going to get some guaranteed money. Like we were watching what Luka Doncic, would he get $207 million or something?
But it was really Josh Allen. He got $150 million guaranteed, or maybe at least $100 for sure.
Guaranteed.
Yeah.
As part of his $200 and something million.
Yeah, contract.
And now they're saying because he got 40 something, that whatever Aaron Rodgers' next deal is, wherever, he's going to get 50 a year. 50.
They said that?
Yes. Read an article this morning that he could be the first $50 million a year guy, Aaron Rodgers.
Really?
50.
Oh, I don't know about it. You know, I love some Aaron Rodgers now.
50.
If I'm building my team right, 50, that's, I don't know.
50. I just keep
because how many
saying
more years? Let's say they trade him after this season or something. Because I knew he was going to be there this year. I don't know if he's going to be there. If they trade him, and they give him a new contract, what he's going to get $50 million for the next 2 or 3 years? So he's going to get $150 million on a 3-year contract.
Yeah.
Wow.
And just think, how much of that you'd have to guarantee? Probably at least 2 years.
Oh, yeah, you do.
I mean, you'd have to say, okay, $100 million you're getting for sure, no matter what.
Yep. You know what? He'll get that if they win the Super Bowl this year. Because then Green Bay be like, okay, you got us where we want us. We want it. We'll let you kind of go in, to somewhere else, as long as it's not in our division.
Right. Can't go to the Vikings.
Right. Yeah. Well, he'll probably, maybe go West Coast somewhere or something. They want him as far away, so he's not that close to remind him how good he is.
Well, and that's funny because you think, what if they do win it all? They may just go to him and say, just here's the checkbook, write yourself an amount to stay till you're ready to not.
Oh, he could do that.
Yeah.
And it's funny, early on when he first showed up, he was talking about, as time goes on, hopefully, things, you kind of patch up the relationship like anything else in life, and hopefully it'll get better. I think he was referencing the GM there.
Yeah.
Gutekunst. Yeah, Gutekunst.
Yeah, what a name.
Yeah, Gutekunst need a goot out. That's kind of what Aaron Rodgers is saying. Like, hey, man, somebody need to have a talk with him.
Well, they got a long season ahead, but they just got to – I mean, the NFC is the one that's open. You can win the NFC. The AFC is a minefield.
Yeah, it is. It's I was thinking about this yesterday because I was having a conversation with a friend of mine, and he was saying, man, the AFC is tough, especially some young up-and-coming teams. Let alone you got Cleveland, Buffalo, young up-and-team. The Ravens are always going to be in
always.
It. The Titans are naturally going to be in. And then the Colts, besides the quarterback situation and guard, if they got that fixed. And then you go, well, dang, New England and the Steelers won't stay down for long. And the Steelers were doing well until all of a sudden they couldn't run the football. People figured out, hey, man, Roethlisberger's probably not going to throw deep, periodically throughout the game, but maybe once or twice. And so they kind of got out of the hunt after, they win 11 in a row or something?
Yeah.
And so you got to think that they're going to be in it. So now we're talking about 7-8 teams right there off the bat.
And then you didn't even say Kansas City.
Right, because everybody knows they're number one.
Last 2 Super Bowl participants.
Yeah, I would probably, they're probably going to be there again unless something drastically wrong. I mean, something happens, and that means something to the quarterback. But they're always going to. So that means now basically there's like 10 teams.
Yep.
10 teams in the AFC. It's tough sledding, man.
So, and in the NFC, it's like, okay, can you get past Brady and the Buccaneers? Can you get past them?
Well, Brady and Rodgers.
Yeah.
Because
I'm talking about for Rodgers to try to get past the Buccaneers.
They had home field and they lost.
Sure did.
Yeah.
Picked off Brady, what?
3 times.
3 times.
Yeah. Oh, I watched
Still
it.
lost.
Yeah. They had to go for it there at the end, and I think they're going to regret that forever. But I haven't heard LaFleur say he regrets that decision. Yeah.
No, I don't think he can say it, but he's got to regret that.
Why can't he say it?
He can't second guess himself. Everybody else done a good enough job.
That's all they do is second guess. That's what you do as a coach. They'll never admit it.
I would admit that. I would admit that. I would own that.
Me and you both would, but that's why we would be unemployed.
That's why we're doing this show.
Yeah.
Hey,
right, there you
speaking
go.
of this show, Ryan Callahan is set to join us next. We'll talk Vols with the man from 24/7 Sports. It is Blaine Mickey. It is 104.5 The Zone.
The NFL preseason is finally here, and the Titans pay an early visit to Julio Jones' former team, the Atlanta Falcons. Mike Keith and Coach Mac have the kickoff Friday night at 6.
Finger roll! Touchdown! Titans!
On your home for Titans football and flagship for Titans Radio, 104.5 The Zone.
go and see some of practice. It had just been like behind a wall for so long. What's it like to watch people practice football again?
Well, I was just saying before we went on the air, it was a little bit different, or very noticeably different, the first couple days. Now that we've gotten into the heart of camp, it's sort of back to business as usual in terms of how much we're getting to see. It's 3 periods and not much more than that. So, it's back to kind of, status quo compared to what you're seeing throughout the SEC these days, compared to what previous staffs have done. But, those first 2 days were very different. You got to watch about an hour of practice, 8 or 9 periods, and not all of it could be shot for video and photos, but you were getting to see a lot of football. And now that they put on pads and got into real camp mode, it's been scaled back, and we're back to just seeing about 15 minutes or so. But still a very different media climate, because we are getting to talk to players and coaches a lot more freely than we were under the previous staff, talking with a different assistant coach almost every day, and players quite a bit. We're talking to a lot of freshmen, transfers that just got into the program. That didn't happen a lot under the old staff. So it's still a very different media climate compared to what we experienced in the past.
It's interesting because you're always going to hear, how things were compared to the last coach or whatever. But Dane Davis, had the quote that went a lot of places a couple of days ago, where he basically called life under Jeremy Pruitt agonizing. And I just thought, dang, man. I mean, you might say we're having more fun now, and this guy's more fun. He used the word agonizing.
Yeah, and one of his former teammates, Austin Pope, who just left the program for injury reasons as a fifth-year senior, he kind of took him to task for it last night on Twitter, pointing out that, hey, Dane Davis went on scholarship under Jeremy Pruitt's staff, and to come out and say that. I think in some ways, though, that adds a little more teeth to that quote. The fact that this is a guy who got his opportunity at Tennessee under Jeremy Pruitt, went on scholarship under that staff, and still felt like saying that. And context is worth noting here too, because we were a little bit taken aback by that word, and the tone that he said that. It didn't come across to me as harshly as it did, I think, in print. When people saw that word typed out, I think it took on a different meaning from maybe how he intended it to. But I think the reality is there, that they didn't enjoy going to work every day as much as they do under this staff. And I mean, like you said, things are often said looking back on a previous regime that are not necessarily all happy thoughts, but still, that's worth noting. And I think some of that, I kind of had in mind that some of that came from last year being just such a weird year.
Yeah.
Players have, felt disconnected from one another because they didn't get to just hang out in the facility because of COVID protocols. They basically had to go back to their dorms after practice. It was a very different year. I thought some of that might have colored that year and that experience totally differently for them. But hearing these players talk about it, and it's not been just Dane Davis, it's been several guys, I think it's pretty clear they didn't love at least a lot of them. It's probably not a unanimous thought, but they didn't love playing for that old staff. And I think at least in the first months of this staff's regime tenure, they're feeling a different experience that they didn't have, and they're saying, hey, this is great, and it's maybe telling them more how much they didn't like playing for the old staff. So it's certainly an interesting storyline to track throughout camp.
Well, really the craziest thing about all this, and you mentioned he got put on scholarship by Pruitt, this dude is like a factor on the offensive line as a former walk-on. He's one of those kind of warm and fuzzy camp stories.
Exactly, yeah. But it really is amazing. I mean, it kind of came up, I think, from, just simple questions that were being asked to players about, the sort of the fun things they've done off the field, playing dodgeball back right around National Signing Day in February. A lot of the things they've done as sort of team-building activities. And in discussing those things, players have kind of come across that, Hendon Hooker, that just came in from Virginia Tech, the quarterback, he said, this is the most fun I've ever had with teammates. And this is a guy who's now in college for his fifth year. So things like that have come up have made it pretty clear how this team currently feels about this coaching staff. And again, we've seen this. We've been through this a few times now on the Tennessee beat to sort of know that under a first-year coach that there tend to be some that there's a lot of fresh stuff that everyone feels better about. There's an excitement that comes with a fresh start. So everybody tends to say things like that in the first year of how much better something is than what it was before. But this feels a little different. This feels a little more like everybody really is having fun right now. And we'll see. Does that amount to more wins on the field? Obviously, only time will tell. This team still has some limitations, I think, personnel-wise, that are going to affect that. But you never know. Sometimes that can make a difference, but it's still a very tangible difference talking to players. They seem to be really enjoying themselves.
Ryan Callahan enjoying himself with Blaine and Mickey right now here on the Blaine and Mickey Show.
No doubt we have to, I guess, stick with the offensive line before we get into the quarterback situation and that is, what's your assessment of the offensive line? Especially, I think they need to fill one of the tackle spots too as well. So where's Dane Davis in that whole equation? And I think one of the coaches said that they have 9 or 10 deep. Do you believe that?
I think they're at least 7 or 8 deep with guys they would feel pretty comfortable playing with. I think once you get into 9 or 10, you're talking to freshman or a guy who hasn't done it really before. So there's some truth to that, I'm sure, but I wouldn't say that fans should look at it as an offensive line that legitimately can go too deep without much of a drop-off. I think their depth has taken some hits this offseason, to the point that I think some fans wondered if they needed to go to the transfer portal to look for a tackle, and that might be more of a glaring concern now because Ryan Callahan, a fifth-year senior who looked like he was finally healthy and maybe getting a chance to kind of come into his own, has recently suffered a biceps injury, or what's thought to be a biceps injury. I haven't gotten the official word on that from Josh Heupel yet. We'll hear from him on Thursday, but certainly sounds like he's expected to miss some time at the very least. And so that takes them down to, I think, 3 tackles that they really trust, with those being Cade Mays, Darnell Wright, and Dane Davis. And certainly Dane Davis has a very good chance of playing quite a bit this year. It could even be an opening day starter. We'll see about that. But I think they've got 6 or 7, maybe 8 that they feel really good about. And then, once you get beyond that, it's a little bit tougher. But they do have some interchangeable parts, starting with Cade Mays, that gives them some flexibility. But when you look back on what they've lost, I mean, Trey Smith, Brandon Kennedy, Jameer Johnson, obviously Wanye Morris going to Oklahoma. They've lost some talent from last year. So how well can they replace those guys? That remains to be seen. But I think they do still have a pretty solid group when you consider all the guys they have lost since last season.
Well, naturally, one with Ryan Callahan with Go Vols 247, it's all about the quarterback play. You got to protect him with the offensive line. But has Heupel or anyone on the staff, quarterback coach, offensive coordinators, talked about what they're going to determine, how they're evaluating the quarterbacks to see who actually is the starter?
Yeah, I think they feel it obviously in most of these cases it's an overall, kind of just body of work. It's not any one thing. It's not just looking for accuracy. It's not just looking for decision making. It's how all that stuff meshes together. This staff has made it clear, though, the one thing that they really want to see is a guy who can stretch the field ideally and who's going to throw it well. They're not necessarily looking for a runner. So if anyone's wondering that, did Joe Milton and Hendon Hooker have a leg up on Harrison Bailey, for instance, because they can do more with their feet? I don't think that's the case. I think the staff is willing to go in a different direction regardless of all that. I think they want someone who can pass effectively first and foremost. Mobility helps, but it's not a deal breaker with this staff. They've done it with different types at Josh Heupel's previous stops. So I think they view it as a situation where they want to be able to throw it well. They've got some receivers that frankly have looked pretty good, I think, so far during camp. A fairly deep group of receivers that's been bolstered by the addition of Javonte Payton, the Mississippi State transfer, who's originally from Nashville, played at Hillsboro. And so having those guys, you want to throw it to them, and this staff wants to throw it all over the place. So it's just about who's most consistent in that area, and maybe in Hendon Hooker's case, who can stretch the field most effectively. I don't think Hooker necessarily did that enough this spring. They're trying to throw it down the field and make big plays, score quickly, and who gives them the best chance to do that. But it's about decision making and all that stuff, obviously, as it comes down to in pretty much all of these battles that you see.
Which is always vitally important is the quarterback play, offensive line play. But who are the actual leaders? Since you're talking about, the quarterback kind of figuring out who's going to be the starter, to me, leadership is always key in college football. Who are the leaders as of today right now on the football team?
Yeah, I think that's still a bit of an evolving thing. It's a good point because last year you had Trey Smith that was a very established leader, I think, on offense, a guy that a lot of people look to certainly for an example, even if not for a rah-rah kind of speech or anything like that. He was someone everyone could lean on in that program and know where they stood with him and know what needed to be done. On defense, they lost some guys from last year, so I think on defense, certainly Alontae Taylor, it's his time to be a leader. Is he doing that? Is he totally embracing that role to the level that he needs to? Hard to say for sure, but I think that's someone that is one of the most natural leaders on this team that has a chance to kind of fill that role. And then on the defensive line, they've got several seniors that I think are capable of contributing in that area. Matthew Butler maybe being one that kind of stands out. On offense, they've got a lot of guys who've played, but not necessarily a lot of guys who are seniors who are 3-year starters or anything like that. So Cade Mays, to me, even though he's in his second year in the program, might be kind of one of those guys. But I think that is an evolving storyline. And, frankly, this team is probably going to need the quarterback, whoever it is, to step up and be a leader for this team, because it's such an important part of what they're going to do. They want to throw the ball, and this offense needs to be explosive. So that quarterback is going to ideally need to be a leader. And whether that's Joe Milton, Hendon Hooker, Harrison Bailey, whoever, it's going to have to be sort of an evolving leadership group, I think, starting with the quarterback.
Week 1, give us your bold prediction. Who you think will be the starter there? Not to say that will change or multiple quarterbacks play, but who do you think is going to have a leg up, you think, predicting?
I think if Josh Heupel or anybody on that staff was being completely candid, I think deep down they think Joe Milton will end up being the guy to start the season. I think that's how they envisioned it probably playing out when they brought him in after spring practice. I don't think they would have brought in a guy like that just for depth. And everything we've continued to hear, and certainly what we've seen with our own eyes, suggests that he's definitely talented enough to handle the job, and that they think he maybe gives them some dynamics, some upside that the other guys might not. But I'll say this: don't sleep on Hendon Hooker. I think he's a guy who's maybe gotten a little bit overlooked in the offseason discussions. Harrison Bailey had the big spring game, so I think a lot of fans maybe got caught up in that, but Hooker was the more steady guy throughout spring practice, and he had a really good offseason, it sounds like. They've really spoken pretty highly of his summer work and how far he's come since arriving at Tennessee in January. So I think both of those transfers might be the favorites right now, but Milton just has a big arm. He's a big guy, looks like a defensive end. He's 245 pounds or so. I think he brings a lot to the table in this staff. If they're being honest, I think would like it to play out where Joe Milton is the guy, but he's got to go out there and earn it.
With Ryan Callahan with Go Vols 247.
Yeah, joining us on the Mark Spain Real Estate Hotline. It's interesting you gave Milton's measurables. It's basically the same as me. I'm surprised that we're that close. That's shocking to me that he and I are that close, similar in measurements. That's crazy.
The 0.5 part, right?
Yes, 100%. Ryan Callahan, our guest. How many running backs are in the mix? Because we keep talking about who's going to take the snaps, but how many guys do you think will get legitimate snaps out of the backfield this year, and catch balls or take handoffs from whoever the quarterback is?
Well, that's always a position where I say health usually ends up dictating that to some degree, but I think 3 or 4 at least, and they've got a little bit of depth and competition in that group now that Lenith Whitehead is back out there and Tyon Evans is out there after being limited for most of the spring. Evans is a junior college transfer who was a 4-star and the number 1 JUCO running back in the country last year. So he's a guy that a lot of people were excited to see, and he's looked the part, I think, through the first several days of camp. So there's some interesting players back there. They lose a lot of production, obviously, with Eric Gray and Ty Chandler no longer in the program. But Jabari Small has a lot of people excited. Even getting an Alvin Kamara comparison from one of his teammates here recently, and then Tyon Evans. I think he's maybe the most physically gifted of the bunch in some ways. But is he going to be the perfect fit for this system? Is he going to be an every down back? We'll see. But he's just a really stout guy that has he's got these big thighs that he can really bounce off defenders well and break tackles. So he gives you something different. I think they've got some guys that can piece things together with D. Beckwith, who's 6'4" or 6'5", so unusually built maybe for a running back, but a big, powerful guy that can run. So I think they've got a nice complement of running backs there that can do some different things. I think you'll see them play at least 3 or 4, and we'll see how effective that group is. But that's a big storyline, too, is how can these mostly untested guys replace what they lost, obviously, in Gray and Chandler.
I feel like we got to ask you about this because you're the recruiting guy. What's the latest I saw, at least as of last night late? I looked Vols up to 27th in the 24/7 recruiting rankings.
Yeah, they've had a nice run this summer, certainly since the start of July. Had a pretty good week last week, getting Addison Nichols, the highest ranked player in their class now, 4-star offensive lineman from the Atlanta area. who has some Tennessee ties that certainly made Tennessee a factor throughout his recruitment, but they beat out some big-time programs for him, so that was a major recruiting win. And then they added a wide receiver from Arkansas, Chaz Nimrod, on Thursday. So they've added a number of guys throughout the summer and now up to 14 commitments in the class. Still in the mix for some guys who could make announcements by the end of the month. So we'll see if they can add anything else before the season starts. But certainly they're in a much better spot after a slow start during the spring, where you didn't see they didn't have any commitments until mid-April. Understandable given the timing of the coaching change and the dead period, not having any visitors for a while. But once the visits started on June 1st, the staff started to gain some momentum. So I think they're in a much better spot. It's still probably not going to be a top 10 or top 15 class just because of all the things they've dealt with. But I think they've certainly got a chance to finish in a much better spot than people might have thought 2 or 3 months ago when this staff was, obviously struggling with everything they were encountering after coming in late and dealing with the NCAA investigation and all that stuff.
Ryan Callahan, our guest from Go Vols 247 here on Blaine and Mickey.
Well, I guess before we let you go, do we have any update on timeline or what the NCAA has found, with the UT program?
There hasn't been yet, and it's one of those things that everyone involved continues to say that it's just hard to nail down a date when things might happen. Now, the one thing that is maybe a little more within Tennessee's power is whether they self-impose any penalties and try to do that either before the season or early in the season. I don't think that's a given, but I think they would like to do that sooner rather than later, if at all possible, to try to give these recruits, they're obviously being hammered with that left and right and a lot of recruiting battles, to try to put that out there a little bit more because, a lot of schools are naturally filling in the blanks that, hey, it might be a 2 or 3 year bowl ban. This might affect half your career or more at Tennessee. They want to fight that perception, but they don't have anything to really counter that at this point. So to get some self-imposed penalties out there would help them, but they obviously don't want to jump the gun on that. So do they do something like that sooner? That hard to say for sure, but it's still interesting to me that Donde Plowman, the chancellor, said back in the spring on Vol calls, and it's pretty much been true to this point, she didn't expect anything to wrap up before the season started. And that was 4 or 5 months ago. That's held true. So will it happen by the end of the year? We'll find out. But I think this investigation's not over yet. It's just as Tennessee try to wrap things up on their end in any kind of timely fashion to get some self-imposed penalties at least out of the way, and then hand it over to the NCAA and say, okay, now let's see if you agree.
All right, well, real quick, I know they were having issue with depth at linebacker. Everybody would hammer us over the head if we didn't ask you. How's that going, and are players stepping up and finally, some guys standing out?
Yeah, much better looking group. They've added some guys, 2 transfers, William Mohan and Jawan Mitchell, since the end of spring practice. Got some guys back who were not out there this spring, Aaron Beasley, Aaron Willis, a true freshman who was a 4-star last year. So some guys that have really made that a better looking group on the practice field. And obviously the biggest one, the return of Jeremy Banks. So now Jawan Mitchell, Jeremy Banks, probably the early leaders in the clubhouse for those starting jobs, but some legitimate competition there now. I think Tennessee feels a lot better about that group, knowing they're probably going to have 2 linebackers on the field most of the time in a lot of those nickel packages. So 2 guys, now they've got 7 or 8 I think they feel pretty good about. They only had 5 out there at the end of spring practice healthy. So it's a much different, much better looking, much deeper group. And so they're in a much better spot a week into camp.
RC, thank you, man. People can follow Ryan, and they need to if you don't. At Ryan Callahan 247 or everything at GoFalls 247. Thanks, man. We'll catch up again soon.
Sounds good. Thanks a lot,
Appreciate
guys.
it, Ryan.
Yes, sir. When we come back, the NFL has said there's a rule that they're really going to enforce this year, and fans are going to hate it. They're going to hate it. We'll tell you what it is next. Blaine and Mickey.
A.J. Brown, Bud Dupree, and Caleb Farley. You hear them on the exclusive Titan station.
104.5 The Zone.
How about this? 15 fun league. Because, you can't just cut up. You can't have a lot of fun.
Well, they've been having fun the last couple of years, though.
They have fun counting all that money.
Oh, what they've been celebrating in the end zone. They've given them a little. Remember, everybody goes in front of the camera and these group things, and I'm like, man, I wouldn't even have the energy to run from all the way just to make sure I got on there.
Guys will run 70 yards to get in one of those.
I'll catch you next time, man. I got to conserve energy.
Who had the best, before I say this rule, who had the best celebration of anybody you ever play with? You're like, oh, that looks like fun.
Oh, I don't.
Best one. Anybody ever do something so much fun you thought, they do the electric slide or anything, you want to go join them?
No, not at all.
Was it Ray Lewis's whole deal?
Yeah, I tried to duplicate that when I did a PBU in a game versus them, and it didn't look the same. Yeah, it did not look the same. No, I definitely was not a fan of that just because it was the rival there at that time, and they were dominating us pretty much. But no, I was still part of that old school generation where, act like you've been there before. Totally different generation it is now, have some fun, have some personality, do all those things. Go look up Eddie George's all his touchdowns. Let's see what he did. Absolutely nothing. Handed the ball to the referee like Barry Sanders. Yeah,
Boy,
that's what that era was.
hand the ball. Think about that.
Yeah.
People like
hand
Eddie
the ball.
George, Barry Sanders, to cross the goal
Well,
line.
you still got guys that's doing it today, too.
Right.
I mean, like
Immediately
Nick
just look for the
Chubb or,
official.
yeah.
Toss the ball to him. And you got other guys out there pretending to be on like a video shoot or a boat, like
I'm
the
always
deck of a boat.
fascinated, though, in some of the guys who are doing backflips. Because it's like, man, you ran all this way, and you still have the energy to do a backflip? Wow.
In full pads.
Yeah. That's it's not like at practice, and it's not in a game where you just called it like a 5-yard pass, and, you got a lot, man. But I see Tyreek Hill does it. I mean, I'm like, man, this guy stopped at the end zone and then turned around to the backflip. Woo. You talk about some explosive individuals, and that's like nothing to him. You're doing it with pads on, too, helmet. I'd be all screwed up. What if you just land on your head? I mean, just think everybody saw it.
Right. International TV, because it's the NFL. Yeah, man, one leg, my glute didn't fire. I just landed on my head.
Wow.
What if you got hurt doing that?
Yeah, that wouldn't be fun.
Tore a hammy.
Yeah. That's probably why the NFL coming out with some new rules now, you say, right? They're trying to spoil it? What are they doing? What are they pushing now? I do not know the answer to this.
You said, don't tell me the answer to this. Here's the answer. This is my sports update on Twitter, and I've seen 20 national accounts tweet about this. Game officials have been instructed to strictly enforce taunting rules in games. After the NFL saw an increase in taunting last year, 2 taunting penalties get you an automatic ejection. In addition, if the taunting is bad enough, you could get fined or suspended because you waved bye-bye to a guy.
Wait. That's what I was just about to ask. What is the line to taunting? Like where is it? I thought, the DB Winfield Jr. got an unfair taunting penalty, in the Super Bowl.
That was the most exciting thing in the whole Super Bowl was him taunting.
And I'm cool if that's the way you're going to go with it and penalize. But you also have to penalize the offense for doing the same thing to him, which they did the time before they played.
Yes.
He didn't get a penalty. What was that? That was taunting.
Yep.
I mean, and that's all he was doing was getting back at him like, nah, not today. Nope. Not today, baby. Gave him the peace sign, and they gave him a penalty. Really?
Yep.
He did bend down in his face, though, P.
I
thought it was fine. I mean, because if you know the history of what happened the last time.
Payback is a mother during the Super Bowl.
Yeah, so I felt like that was, and he got fined for that, too. So, yeah. So I'm thinking that's probably the lowest thing you could do, like the easiest thing you can get a penalty to some of this outrageous stuff for the taunting. I don't know how far that goes. I mean, does that mean taunting is you MF'd another player?
I don't know. I mean, it could.
You spit in his eye at the bottom of a pile. I mean, these things go on, by the way. That's why I'm bringing them up.
Right. This
so
is
it's not like that.
Real stuff.
This is actually what's going on out there. Somebody punched you in the gut or the groin. Yeah. Mm-hmm. If you slap somebody, in the heat of a battle, they probably going to call a penalty anyway. But
yeah, that gets
sometimes it gets overlooked. I mean, just because I'm just like, where is the line here? This one here is a tough one for me.
It's tough for me,
to me, it has to be egregious for me to call as a referee. I always have to look at it from the referee's eyes. If it's something really agreed, yeah, you got it. Yeah, we got to do that. But we can't get to, oh, you can't wave at a guy because you're running to the end zone and he's 5 yards away and he can't catch you. Really? Waving at a guy?
I guarantee they're going to call that.
Come on, man. What the heck are we doing here?
No fun league. And they're going to do it, Blaine. It's going to be like week 16. Somebody's going to be trying to make the playoffs, and some dumb taunting penalty is going to cost somebody a game.
And then they're going to call somebody, it depends on who it is, may cost you a roster spot.
Oh, yeah. I mean, this is one of those things.
It costs a team a game. The head coach, that's going to come across some conversations by the staff.
Right now, they're like, because the Titans have officials at practice right now. And so Mike Vrabel said on Saturday, we got officials coming in next week, and we'll have meetings with them. We'll ask them, what are you emphasizing this year? Yeah. So if that guy's like, hey, man, because they show video examples, right? They're like,
yes, we're
going to call this. Yeah. This guy, he waved at this guy, we're going to call it. Okay. This guy was pointing at this guy after a play, we're going to call that. Okay. So if they're going to show them some examples, and Mike Vrabel, he's going to be like, y'all better not do any of this stuff.
Yeah.
Anything close.
Well, no, all the head coaches are going to, and you're going to emphasize it. And sometimes, it's an emotional game. And sometimes your emotion gets the best of you, in the heat of the battle. You never know. So you're just hoping that you don't get a penalty that costs your team if it does happen. Yeah. So I'm interested to see the line here.
Well, and just watch. If it's a point of emphasis, it's like when the college basketball, you can always tell when college basketball has something that they have to enforce, because that's like 7 of those they've called in the first half. We get it. Carrying or whatever it might be. Hand checking. Remember, that was a big one. Mm-hmm. Big point of emphasis when you was hand checking. You couldn't even play the game because they're saying, get out the whistle. Oh, no, here it is again. Hand checking. It'll be real interesting to see how much it muddies up some of these preseason games if they're calling anything that even looks like taunting.
Oh, you just made my back.
They're going to last 4 hours.
Yes, that's exactly what I was thinking. And I'm doing a post-game show with you.
Midnight. I'll see you midnight on Friday.
No.
I'll see you at midnight.
Oh, man, they cannot call these taunting. I mean, they're more fun bunch. Is that taunting? See, that's what I'm talking about. A celebration. Is that taunting?
I think you can do that.
But that's celebration.
Yeah, but I think you celebrate, but you can't, point. Like, you could just, you and me could do some elaborate dance. But if we pointed at the guy that we just did something to, then that's where we're in trouble.
How about this?
You and me need an elaborate dance.
No, I definitely would. I had the little cowboy dance. I used to do when I do some tackle or something. But what about this? Is this taunting? You score a touchdown. You look at the guy. He's standing right there. This can happen easily to a DB. Yeah, because this happened to me before.
Okay.
And he looks at you. He scores a touchdown. On a catch, not a run catch. That he caught it on you and boom, just like let's just say Marcus Johnson did in the end zone yesterday.
Okay.
Or today. And then he turns and looks at the guy and spikes it on Lucas Panzikas on his touchdown and say, how you like that? And looks dead at him. Is that taunting?
This is the new catch or no catch?
No. This is the new. They're going to emphasize taunting. So
people don't realize Lucas had his eyes closed just now. He was sleeping
in his ears.
with his ears open.
But it is going to be the new catch or no catch debate. Is it taunting or is it not taunting?
Oh, that's what you're saying.
Yeah.
Oh, you were 2 steps ahead of us, you rascal.
Yeah.
Well,
I wasn't asleep.
We're not going to taunt anybody because the first hour of the show is over. Guess what? Second hour coming up. We can discuss taunting some more. What do you think about that? I mean, should the NFL be worried about other things? You can hit us up on the Mark Spain Real Estate Hotline, 615-737-1045, at Blaine and Mickey on Twitter. We'll get you there, too.
And I got a beef when we come back.
Oh, Lord. Where's the beef?
I don't ever. And it has to do with the unofficial depth chart.
Okay. Well, we're officially going to hit that next. Coach Mac in about 20 minutes. Blaine and Mickey.
Jason Martin and Ramon Foster might have the mics, but the show is about you, the fam.
You guys are the show. We have some microphones. That means you can hear us. We want to hear you. We want to know you. You guys are just like us. Just like us. We might be in a different position in terms of our voice can be heard by more people. You know what else it doesn't mean? It doesn't mean that your voice doesn't matter. It doesn't mean that ours matters any more than yours does. We just love you guys.
J. Martin Ramon, tomorrow, starting at 6 on 104.5 The Zone.
Hour number 2 of the Tuesday show. I know it's Tuesday because I looked at my phone when the show started today. Also, Blaine knows it's Tuesday because he wrote it down on his notes. So he's going to tell you have a great Tuesday at the end of the show.
Yeah, just call me out whenever I get have a happy whatever day at the end of the show, as I do, beginning or end. And I fear that I will say the wrong day one day, and I'll be driving home and say, "Uh-oh, I said the wrong day." I'm probably gonna call back to 3HL and tell them, "Hey, happy Tuesday, not Wednesday."
Well, I look at my phone to know what day it is. That's kind of where I am in life right now. Titans continue with training camp. The NFL is going to, a bunch of you have responded, by the way, Zone TV, Twitch, YouTube, Facebook, Twitter. You can join us anywhere. And it had been a little quiet today, but we brought up the NFL is going to, and Blaine's got a beef. He's going to get you with his beef here in a second. We'll hear Blaine's beef. We'll get to Blaine's beef in just a second. But the NFL is going to emphasize taunting, like no taunting at all. So Mike and we got just a chat with everything in it. Mike says, 100% act like you've been there before. Because you were like, watch Eddie George. He just scored a touchdown. Look for the official toss.
That's how we were taught, our generation, no doubt.
Lonzo says, no fun league. Mike says, if it's a game-winning touchdown, interception, sack, etc., that's one thing. But dudes nowadays celebrate after tackling someone when they make a 7-yard gain. Dudes also celebrate an incomplete pass when it was a quarterback overthrow and they did not make a play.
Oh.
Now, those are funny.
Yeah.
Where, like, the dude gets up and, like, punches the air and goes crazy, and you're like, they just gained 6 yards. Yeah. What are you doing?
Well, especially if the guy got, like, a first down. Like,
right.
Because you finally tackled him, he didn't score.
Right. You got him by the shoestring 17 yards downfield. You get up acting like you just won the Super Bowl. I guess that's a guy just, like, trying to keep himself, like, yeah, like he's just keeping himself in the game. But it sure looks funny when guys do that.
Yeah. Well, I mean, it depends on who you are. Let's say you're a rookie and, you've been getting toasted by Tyreek Hill and you finally get a tackle on him and you get the shoestrings, you take him down, you get up, yeah, I got him finally. Now I got your number.
Right. See you next time, man.
After you get beat 40-14 or something.
Right. But you're celebrating out there in the fourth quarter down by 3 scores because you finally tackled.
You know what's so funny? I always used to laugh at people would do that, even when I was playing, because I go, do you know the score? And I would always point up to the score. Like, dude, I don't care if you caught a first down or not.
You can't do that now, Blaine. You can't point at the scoreboard.
The scoreboard.
It's taunting.
We're destroying you guys.
You can't.
What are you doing, man?
You can't point at the scoreboard anymore. That's 2 points and you're out.
And then his response was, I got to put that on my highlight reel.
I've never had a problem with the defensive back celebrating after an overthrow or something because it's still an incomplete pass. The receiver did not catch the ball on you, regardless of whether you caused it or not.
No, but was he covered? No, but did you have him?
I don't know.
It was an overthrow on purpose.
But where he's 3 steps ahead of you and gets overthrown, and you're like,
that is useless to me. You need to take off your helmet and wipe your sweat off your forehead and go, woo!
But you can still be happy that it was an incomplete pass. It's like a soccer goal during a penalty kick.
See, here, I'm about to get the youngster. You just said happy. Now, well, we're talking about celebrating. We didn't say about, I'm happy. Woo! Yes. Or you give the fist like, yes. I got away with one. But if you start celebrating because they overthrew somebody that was open, I think that deserves a penalty.
A light fist pump. A light fist pump is acceptable.
Okay, I'll go with the fist.
But the guy's like, yeah, man, don't bring that garbage in here.
Yeah, you had him beat by 3 steps.
He was running away from you.
Yeah, that's not good. Trust me, I was up there going, woo, but I was talking a good game to the receiver like, hey, man, you got lucky on that one. No, you got lucky. Nah, then he knew better.
Right. Yeah, it'll show you. Quarterback.
That's the mindset of a DB, man. You feel like you're never beat. you got to have blinders on, man. You got to have, I dare you to throw it over there again mentality, even if you get beat for a touchdown. Oh, they got lucky right there. They better throw it over here. If the DB is looking like he got Bambi, deer in the headlights, after he gets beat for a touchdown, you're in trouble. You are in trouble. Trust, I've seen them before. I come to the side like, hey, man, what happened out there? And they just looking out in the air. Uh-oh. Somebody go wheel him back in. D-Walk, go wheel him back in. We done lost him. Oh, my. I think he's in his head.
Hey, we lost you this morning over this. You got to share your beef.
Oh, my beef. Yes. And it could be an excuse for why the Titans, because I've seen the Chiefs and other teams come out with the unofficial depth chart. I'm trying to figure out, what does that mean? The Titans gave it to us. So why isn't that the official depth chart? I'm just using common logic. I mean, maybe the NFL makes them have to say it's unofficial until the actual regular season starts, because I saw the Chiefs did the same thing. So obviously, maybe it's mandated, but it's always weird to me. I'm like, well, it's not unofficial. The Titans actually gave it to us. Like, unofficial is like if me, you, Mickey, and Lucas we all came up with our own depth chart. That's unofficial.
That would be very unofficial.
Extremely unofficial.
Right, yeah, right. Because I didn't even know who Jan Johnson. He wouldn't have been on my depth chart. Like, who's 47?
This has been a heck of a week for Jan Johnson. Like, a
Jan
bunch
Johnson.
of people found out he was on the team because of this.
His depth chart, best thing to happen to him as a Titan.
He's like, hey, Mom, I don't know if you're listening to radio in Nashville this week, but there's a lot of talk.
They're talking about me. And I'm second string. That means I'm making the roster.
But it's unofficial, though.
They gave it to us.
It's unofficial.
And when I look at the depth chart, I don't feel like they're pulling our chain on anybody, really, to be honest. I think they got some draft pick guys who need to continue to work, to continue to improve. They got later in the draft, in the depth chart. But I think it was an honest depth chart. I'm sure the league makes them have to say unofficial depth chart because they're giving it to us. So it's not like us in the media are making it up, or us, talk show guys are, doing something, like, hey, man, this is the depth chart, and just putting guys all over the place. I always think it's weird. Even when I was a player, unofficial. What are you talking about? Unofficial. It's unofficial that I'm the starter? I start thinking, it's unofficial that I'm the starter? Nah, I don't think it's unofficial that Eddie's the starting running back. It's unofficial CJ2K rushed for 2,000 yards.
Unofficial.
It's not unofficial.
No. We're going to double check some of those yards.
You know who could give us the answer, though? We have him coming up next. Coach Mac and the Mac Attack. He will know the answer and be like, Blaine, you big ding-dong. This is why. Being a former head coach in the DC and all these years in the National Football League, I guarantee you he has the answer. I'm putting him on the spot.
We will officially get to the heart of this unofficial matter next with Coach Mac on Blaine and Mickey.
Mac Attack.
The Titans and Falcons go at it in the first preseason game of the year. Continuous coverage all day Friday.
Into the end zone. Touchdown, Titans!
With kickoff at 6 p.m. on your home for Titans football. 104.5 The Zone.
I don't know, man. I'm going to put both y'all in about the same category.
Missed opportunity on your Tennessee Sports Hall of Fame speech, Blaine.
Oh, I know. I did. I missed it.
You
That's
should
be
have
my last chance.
just did that.
Oh,
man.
Man, you didn't like my singing skills. Okay, Mickey. Okay.
No, I don't ever want you to stop singing, please. Coach Mac joins us. Coach Mac, you missed this because you weren't on the phone yet. Blaine was singing. You missed
that was not.
You missed him
not
singing.
That was the hitman singing.
Well, I'm sure he'll do it for me again sometime, so I'm not worried about it.
Well, not worrying about it is the right way to handle it. Hey, before we get into anything else, Blaine has a burning question for you about the depth chart and a word that is on this depth chart, and he wants to know why that word is there. So I'm passing it to Blaine.
Well, I know you've been around the league for a long time, and I'm sure it's a logical reason why the Titans give us the information and it's still unofficial. Is it some league mandated deal that the depth chart has to come out and be unofficial until the actual regular season starts? I'm just trying to use common sense to it, and which probably doesn't make a lot of sense, but to me
it's
it
never
does.
official until the 53-man roster is set.
Gotcha.
Right now, because, a depth chart right now, the guys that will start the game on Atlanta will not be the guys that are listed as number one. And so it's unofficial until the 53-man roster is set. Then during the course of the season, that's why there's rules as far as to when you have to activate somebody off of the practice squad if somebody goes down. And then 90 minutes before the ball game, you have to say who your 46 active are. There is no rule during the regular season as to you don't have to tell anybody who is starting. Mm-hmm. But at that point, you've got visual evidence on tape every week. And so it's up to each club to determine as far as their scouts that are at the game, and then you as far as vetting the team that you're playing as who the starters are going to be. But nothing is official with the depth chart and with the roster until the first 53-man roster is set after the final cut.
There you go. Mac giving us the Mac attack right there. That's what I love. Now, since we're talking about rules, I hear there's going to be an emphasis on taunting. Do you know what's going to be emphasized a little bit in the line where it's going to be drawn on the taunting yet, or do you not know that yet?
Do not know. I have no idea. I talked to Cleet Blakeman a little bit today at practice, but before they got out on the field, did not bring that up. I really don't know. Once the new rule comes out, I will go into the rule book. A big advantage I had during my years of coaching was that Jeff Fisher was the head of that competition committee for about 15 seasons. So I would always be very up to date on what was going on. As soon as they put that out, I will read the rule. I am sure that there will be some that I will disagree with this season during the broadcast, and I will let that be known because I'm always very honest as to what I see and what I feel up there. But no, Blaine, I do not know how they're going to delineate it. The word that I got today is that they are just going to emphasize it. What are they going to emphasize? I don't know yet, Blaine.
Exactly right. Okay, now give us, you give us all your thoughts on some of the rules and things of that nature. But as a new head coach, if you were coaching today and you were the new head coach with now only 3 preseason games and 17 games, how would you approach training camp and then playing your veterans who you know are going to be on your roster in the preseason? Are you playing them, a little bit each game, or would you not play them but one game? Kind of take us through your thought process on why you would have those kind of decisions on how much you would play your veteran players in preseason.
Yeah, Blaine, it would depend on the health of each individual player at the time. Also, it would depend on where in their career those players were. That would have a total bearing on it. Just like when I was a head coach, that had total bearing on it. When I had Emmitt Smith, for the last part of his career, he never touched the field during preseason. So I think it depends on your players. I think it depends on the age of your player, the health of your player, where he is, and then again, how many people you need to look at, and your evaluation period, and also your evaluation status on each player that you have. I do know that this is a different year than anyone that I ever experienced. I've experienced 5 preseason games. I've never experienced 3, and nobody has ever experienced the fact that you're going to have an extra week between the preseason being over with and the regular season starting. So I think that makes a big difference too. So everybody is kind of in different waters this year as far as the way the preseasons are. But most of the time, what you do is you try to get your younger players, and your new players the most work. And then however much work you get your veterans depends on their individual health and also their collective health as you get towards the regular season. As I said, in the past, you would play your starters just, maybe a number of, you'd take not a quarters, you would take numbers of plays in the first ball game. You would pick that up a little bit in the second ball game. The third ball game is when you would play most of it. That's kind of the way it was during your tenure. And then the fourth ball game, because you had to make 2 cuts back then. So you were really razor thin on that fourth ball game, and you'd basically play everybody but your starters in that fourth ball game. How they're going to handle it now, it's going to be a little bit different.
No, I was bringing it up, made me think about it because during Vrabel's tenure, he's had, the delayed game or the Dolphins game, and then now with no preseason games, and then now 3 preseason games, let alone he had 4. So, it's just a lot of, head coaching type decisions that nobody's, really takes heed to or look into that has kind of changed and evolved as time gone on because of the rules and how many games you play. So we're on with Coach Mac.
There is no formula for it. There really isn't. I mean, it's up to each individual coach now. And as you correctly point out, and as I said, this is a different year, because the preseason is different. You've got 3 games, and then you've got an extra week before you play the first real ball game. So it's different. And so it's going to be interesting to see how each organization handles it this year, Blaine.
Yeah, no doubt about it. We're on with Coach Mac giving us the Mac attack.
No doubt. Coach Mac brought to you by Farm Bureau Health Plans. If you need great health care coverage and affordable price, let Farm Bureau Health Plans coach you through it. They got you covered. Coach, here's another thing that's interesting to me, and you navigated a bunch of these training camps, 30-something of them. At what point, like every day, fans who follow the Titans, they'll read the feed of some of the reporters or somebody like Rhett Bryan, and they'll say, these 7 guys didn't practice today. And so some of those guys have been pretty regulars, like, say, Julio Jones. We haven't seen much of him at all. At what point during the preseason do you start trying – if a player's healthy enough to participate, if he's not healthy, I know that's off the table. But at what point – the veterans you're trying to protect, you're trying to rest, at what point do you try to ramp up their activities in practice just to make sure they're in sync with everybody when game 1 starts?
Well, again, it's on an individual basis as to where they are, physically, regardless of the number of years that they've been in the league. And then, in the totality of the number of years that they've been in the league and what they think it takes them to get ready. Because by that time, in your tenure, what it takes for you to get ready. And so to me, it's clearly on an individual basis. And I wouldn't put, and again, it's changed. This load management for players during training camps, guys, training camps have changed dramatically. Yeah. Since I came into the league. I mean, we used to practice, 120 guys twice a day, full pads every day for 6 weeks. I mean, that's what we did. That's just the way it was. And so things have evolved, over the seasons. And now, we're to a point where, they've got the GPS systems in their jerseys, and all of this stuff is measured empirically. And there's so much that goes into it now that just went into it by a gut feel by a coach back when I first started, that it is completely different. So there is no set date. But there comes a time when you want your players, playing together. But at the same time, guys, I've been on football teams where my main guy didn't practice until the week of the first game, because that's when he was best, ready to go. And then, he would play the game. You'd limit the number of plays he would play in the ball game. So what I'm saying, again, all of those things that you see, even though they put them as a group that didn't practice, they're all not practicing for separate and distinct reasons. That's what you've got to understand.
Coach Mac giving us the Mac attack. You and I were standing watching some of practice today, and there was a play, and right near the end of the play, you're like, look what Jackrabbit did there. And you were talking to me about just a total veteran move that he had made. And I love standing next to you at practice because I get that kind of stuff. But you use the word leverage, and I kind of smiled because the guy sitting in the studio with me always talks about using his leverage. Anytime you can use the sidelines or you can use, just anything to your advantage to make things harder for the other guy. But I liked hearing you talk about Jackrabbit doing that stuff.
Well, Mickey, you and I have watched practice together the last 2 days, and I've really enjoyed it. But I watch practice different. I watch it, from the filming boat, which is the high, wide angle end zone. And that's always the filming boat. I ask Anthony Pastrana every day, where's your high wide angle going to be on which fields? You know I do. And we move, and I watch it on the screen. And what I'm watching is a practice tape on the screen as it happens live, because what I'm looking at, I'm not looking at individuals at this point in camp. I'm watching schemes. I'm watching alignments. I am watching what they're working on that day. I'm watching on gap controls. I'm watching reads, all of those types of things, because I'm getting ready to do a broadcast now. And so, but the thing that I pointed out on Jackrabbit was that if this was a play, it was an outside zone to the open side. And of course, once the guy starts running a little bit, well, then, Vrabel blows the whistle. But Jackrabbit went ahead and went through. He was a corner on the open side on a wideout, but he still went through his mechanics of being able to put, the inside arm up, put his inside leg up, keep outside leverage so that everybody else could run to the player rather than just stopping, because he wanted to go through that exercise knowing, I'm a third corner. And so if this does get to me on this third level, I've still got to force that runner back inside to where my help is. And so those are the little things that I look for that, after 35 years of doing it, I can see immediately. But that's what I was talking about today. But that's why, I watch it from where I do. I mean, the worst place to watch practice, just watch the coaches. Where do they watch it from? They watch it from behind the offense or from behind the defense. If you'll ever watch John Robinson at practice, he watches it from behind the defense most of the time. You watch Jim Schwartz right now, who's a senior advisor. He's always behind the defense. That's the perspective you want, because that's the perspective the players have. That's what you look at. That's just what's ingrained in you as a coach. And I take it a step further by just watching it on the big screen on those filming boats, because that's what I want to see. The sideline is the worst place in the world to watch practice if you're trying to get a correct perspective of what's going on alignment-wise and assignment-wise.
Amen to that. Coach Mac, join us, giving us the Mac attack, as Blaine likes to say, right here on Blaine and Mickey.
Well, naturally, going into the preseason, it's preseason week, and first game is coming up here on Friday. I guess in today's modern era, what would you, if you were a head coach, what would you try to be accomplishing in this first preseason game? Give us your thought process on that.
I want to see my young guys and my second and third year guys, that I have questions about as much as I can. That's what I want to see, because, and especially my second year players that had no preseason last year, right? And no OTAs. And then that's the first thing I would want to see, immediately. I want to look at that. And look, the practices that Mike Vrabel has had leading up to this, I don't think I'm giving anything away, but he's had two in a row, and he's had several sessions of call-it sessions. And call-it sessions are this: offense is on the sideline, defense is on the sideline, coaches are on the sideline, not scripted. He puts the ball down, gives them a down and distance, and on your mark, get set, go. The offense uses their personnel group, defense matches it, and offense and defensive coordinators are calling it as it happens on the field. It doesn't necessarily mean that the end result of the play is where the next play will start. Mike Vrabel has it in his mind what he wants to see and work on, placing the ball. But those call-it sessions are valuable. I talked to Mickey about that today too. These are invaluable at this time of year, and that's what they've started to move to now. And so that's very valuable for your veterans. But for this first preseason games, I want to see my young guys.
No doubt about it. It could be beneficial because you don't know what Arthur Smith and the Falcons may be thinking. They may be trying to set the tone. His starters may play a lot, so then you may get to see your backups with the Titans play against some actual starters. So that would be very beneficial to see what those guys look like versus starters in the National Football League.
Yeah, and if you do, that's great. I mean, that's what you want. And you want to put them in stress situations, because you've got to find out, because it's stressful playing in the National Football League. You can attest to that. It's stressful when you're out there, and until you're in stressful situations against a different colored jersey and against an opponent that you're not used to, I mean, that's what you want them in. That's the type of position you want them in. And that's the thing about the preseason too. Each coaching staff has their different approach, because, Arthur's a brand new head coach, and he's got a brand new staff. He's getting to know his players. Mike Vrabel, is a fairly established coach now. He knows these players here. So however you approach it, they're both going to approach it to get out of it the maximum amount of work with the people they want to work. And so that's why it's important. I really enjoy preseason games, but I'm looking at it from an evaluation standpoint, not necessarily from an aesthetic standpoint.
All right. Now take us through, a lot of people kind of ripping, Caleb Farley, he kind of maybe had an aha moment the other day, where he fell. I don't know how he fell, but, he didn't get up and hustled around, and he got, pretty much taken out of practice. I guess it was almost over anyway. But, kind of take us through what was really going on with Caleb Farley on that play and what he's going through mentally and not just the physical side of it, and why something like that can actually happen. I didn't think it was a big deal, but I get it. You got to emphasize it.
And I didn't pay much attention to it at the time. I mean, I really didn't, other than the fact it was a very teachable moment. Right. And the teachable moment was this, because as well as I do, it's never over in the National Football League. And so the quicker you can ingrain yourself in that, I mean, and I think I didn't see the play in particular because I'm not watching that. That's what they're watching, when they're watching individual players as coaches. But Mike Vrabel saw it, and what he was telling them was, look, the play's never over. It doesn't even matter if you are out of the play. How many times, Blaine? How many times when you were in a meeting room, did Greg Williams put that green dot on the player during a play and said, is this guy really running?
Ooh, I used to love it because you could see that, you not playing hard, man. What's going on here? If you tired, you need to take yourself out.
Not at the point of attack, and I've done it too. Just stop it in front of everybody. Is this guy running? Yeah. Is this guy, on the backside? Not even at the point of attack, or if somebody does get blocked and is standing and watching and saying, I can get you a better ticket than this. So that was basically the teaching moment.
Mm. Man, we haven't talked about this a lot, at least not on our show here with Blaine and Mickey to you, but kind of take us through, the running backs here. Evans has kind of looked good. Hill, tell us a little bit about him. And then there's another kid from, from Iowa? He's doing fairly well too. It's kind of break them down and talk about their skill sets.
Well, I mean, they're all outside zone runners and they've got their own individual skill sets. But here's the good thing about all of those guys behind number 22, they're going to all get a chance. Mm-hmm. They're all going to get a chance, but they were all brought in here because they've got a skill set to be. Look, these are one-cut runners in this offense. This offense is not about sitting back there and pitter patter reading the hole. I mean, it's one-cut run, and it's being able to get downhill, and then if you're able to do some things in pass protection is important too. So they've all got basic skill sets. They're all built a little bit differently. None of them are high and as high cut as what Derrick Henry is, but they've all got some skill sets, but they're all inside zone runners, one cut runners. And the good thing about it is Derrick Henry, I'm not in any offensive or defensive meetings. That's not what I do anymore, but I would have a pretty good guess that Derrick Henry's not going to see a whole lot of work in the preseason. So all of these guys are going to get a chance to see what they can do in a preseason ball game.
No doubt. We're on with Coach Mac, giving us the Mac Attack for Titans Radio.
No doubt. Coach, you know me, I like to find these guys who are a little bit off the radar and kind of follow their story. And Marcus Johnson has been a great story in this camp. He's got 4 years of experience in the league. He was an undrafted guy out of Texas. So probably a guy that you might have known about being, a guy from Texas yourself and following college football closely. But he's been a great story in the camp. He had another good day today. That's a crowded room. It's a talented room, and he is standing out in that room.
Well, I mean, he's a veteran player that's been to a lot of places, and a lot of times, these guys that have been in and out of camps, I mean, sometimes they just need the opportunity at the right place, and plus, it makes a difference. I mean, being a veteran makes a difference. I mean, a rookie is got a lot of learning curve in the National Football League, and those guys that have, just like Marcus Johnson, that's been in 4 NFL camps and has been through a season with a couple of teams, knows what's going on. I mean, they're a little bit ahead, and plus, look, you've been out of it, and you've been on the street, for 4 seasons. I mean, you understand that pretty soon, you're going to get a last roundup chance. You know what I'm saying? And so you got to make everything that you have, make every day count. And that's what he's doing. And so to me, and it takes some guys, longer to develop than others. That's why I'm never, ever. And I learned it early on in my career. Don't be an instant evaluator. That's the worst thing that you can be, because it takes time in this league. This league is not a league that lends itself to immediate success. It might lead itself sometimes because of necessity to immediate participation, but it doesn't lend itself to immediate success. So he's just a veteran guy that's taking advantage of some of his chances.
Coach, I'm going to immediately evaluate this segment and say it was pretty good. And it's your first post-birthday segment for all of our listeners. You had a birthday just a few days ago. I know anybody that missed that, if they're not on social media, they would certainly want to tell Coach Mac happy belated birthday.
Well, look, people have been very kind to me everywhere I've ever been. I mean, they made a pretty big deal out of my birthday, much bigger than it should have been. But thank you very much. But Mickey, that's over too.
It's time to go, man. It's go time.
Coach always a coach.
I know he's ready to go. Friday night, Coach. Next week we'll be talking about an actual game.
See you guys.
See you, Coach Mac. Brought to you by Farm Bureau Health Plans. Just like Coach Mac coaching us through it, they'll do that for you. When we come back, there's been a lot of talk about interceptions. We heard from Todd Downing today. He weighed in on that. Also, the defense has played well. Shane Bowen weighed in on that. We'll hear from the coordinators next. Blaine and Mickey, 104.5 The Zone.
Do I have everybody's attention now?
Coming up tomorrow morning.
Thanks to David Beauclair, Josh Ward, and Bill Bender for joining us on Tuesday's show. If you missed any of those conversations, download the podcast on iTunes, Spotify, or anywhere you get your podcast. On Wednesday, we'll be joined by our buddy, Rhett Bryant of Titans Radio, plus midweek motivation with Inky Johnson.
J. Martin Ramon. Tomorrow morning from 6 to 10 a.m. on 104.5 The Zone.
10-4-5 The Zone 3 HL coming up next. Buck Rising is before us, and before him is J. Martin Ramon. And then there's all the podcasts, and there's soccer shows. By the way, Lucas and Will Bowling talk soccer on the station. Help me, because Blaine is a huge international soccer fan. He's got a team in every league. He comes in here in a Ronaldo jersey every day. So this
many people know this.
So
Yeah,
help,
right.
So help me before we hear from the coordinators. Lionel Messi switches teams. Put that for everybody out there who's listening and saying, "Why are you saying Lionel?" I mean, that's right,
Well,
right? Lionel. It looks like Lionel, but Lionel. He's not Lionel Little Train James. He's Lionel Messi.
Is it the same as Tom Brady leaving New England to go
Yeah.
to Tampa Bay, but even bigger?
Even
Yes.
bigger, it would be like if Tom Brady played for the Patriots since he was about 13 years old and made way more money than he even does now.
Where would that be like Tom Brady going, though?
Let's see. PSG is a huge club with all the money in the world, a lot of star power that dominates a subpar French league. So what would be the NFL equivalent of that? But bunch of money and star power, I guess you would think Cowboys, but
Yes,
they don't
and
dominate much of any. They're in a subpar league.
They're the most subpar league in the league. This
So
is
it'd be like Tom Brady to the Cowboys.
Okay. That's it. We did it. So everybody out there is like, why is this a big? Oh, that. Okay.
Yeah.
If the Cowboys actually dominated.
Good stuff.
They only dominate in being worth like $7 billion.
Right. Yeah. Going 7-9 in that division, I suppose, is close to dominating as anyone can get. But I mean, Messi was supposed to be a Barcelona lifer, so this comes as a shock to many.
Shocking.
I even heard him. It brought a few tears, right?
Oh yeah, he was very emotional.
When
at
is
the
the
podium.
soccer podcast, though, so everyone can pour one out for the homie with you guys?
Tonight at 9.
There you
the
go.
Nashville Soccer Show, 9 to 10.
Look at me. I had a feeling it was tonight.
Oh.
So there you go.
That's right before you take a nap before?
No naps. I'm not a nap guy. I've never been a napper. I can't do it.
Well, I was only saying that because I was jokingly saying that because you seem like you work like a lot of hours.
Yeah, maybe I should become a nap guy.
And when you're not working, you're at a show or like hiking 9 miles. Blaine and I had to talk about this. We're worried about you, young man.
Yeah. Well, I saw you with your eyes closed, though. I did see you with your eyes closed.
What are you worried about? I'm going to get burnt out?
No.
No, just that you'll hurt yourself or something, then we won't have you.
I've never broken a bone.
Strictly selfish. We just want you here.
Knock on
You've
wood.
never broken a bone?
Never. And I did a bunch of dumb stuff as a kid. I was climbing trees and jumping out of tree houses and stuff.
I've never broken a
I
bone.
definitely did that.
That's amazing.
I've never broken one either. I've gone over the handlebars of dirt bikes and hit trees and everything else.
Played sports, all that stuff.
Yeah.
Never once.
Sports.
I never broke anything until I got to the National Football League.
Maybe that's what Mickey and I are missing.
You made up for lost time. All right, we got to make up for lost time. So each of the 3 quarterbacks threw an interception today.
No.
Yes, they each did. Been a lot of talk about interceptions. I think the offensive coordinator, though, Todd Downing, might say to that, RELAX, relax. Here's Todd Downing talking about interceptions.
Yeah, they've come in different situations, and some of them are flat out unacceptable. We got to take care of the ball down in the red zone. When we're down there, we can't try to force it into tight windows when the throw isn't there. And then some of them we're working 2-minute drills at the end of the game, and we're down on the clock, and we got to give somebody an opportunity to go make a play. But they're on a case-by-case basis, and I think that as long as the head coach, the offensive coordinator, the quarterback coach, and the quarterbacks are all in lockstep on what's acceptable and what's not in terms of putting the ball in harm's way, we'll be okay by the end of it. Ryan's a guy that certainly is history of taking care of the football, and Logan and Matt are the same way. So I'm not concerned about it as long as it doesn't become a repeated issue.
I mean, yeah, Tannehill has that history. Logan, he's got history in the MAC. He had history there, but not much of an NFL history.
Hey, man, I'm a glass half full, half empty guy. I love Tannehill. The only person I would have signed was Tom Brady, so naturally we didn't get him. So I love Tannehill. But you threw an interception. What did I say when you say you threw it in the red zone? He just lost us points.
Yep.
No. Well, you can't do that. Now, and I was asking, put it in context. Was it a tip ball or something like that? And you're like, nope.
Byard.
Yeah, Byard made a play. No, that cannot happen. And trust me, these conversations are going on to Tannehill, and it's not nice. Oh, okay, but just make sure we protect the ball. No, it's not like that. It's not like that. So you got to put on your big boy undies. Yeah, when you go into the NFL meeting room and say, hey, man, got to put your ego to the side and say, hey, we cannot have this. Why did you do this? What did you see? Did you take a risk here, or should you have thrown it away? You want to, when you're talking to the quarterback, it's a little different than any other position. You want to understand the logic behind what you did, because it could cost us. And not only that, not only did it cost you points, it could eventually cost you a game.
No doubt. And we're talking about interceptions. We've talked a lot about the defense. We'll end with this today. Shane Bowen talking about how the defense has shown up so far.
Yeah, I mean, it's day by day. We go back and forth. I'm encouraged by what we're doing. I'm encouraged by our energy and our competitiveness, and I think we're improving. I see little things from every player, like I told you guys last week. But again, it's day by day. We still got a long way to go. We're 10 days in. Like, we haven't done anything yet. We got to keep improving, keep the focus on us, right? And then we'll see as we get into the season where this thing goes.
Going to see where it goes. It's been going well so far, though.
Well, it's always good. Whenever your defense is flying around making plays, that stuff is contagious. So, see if they can continue it in the preseason. Got a lot of different moving parts in the preseason, so sometimes doesn't equate with practice because now you're playing with guys that you maybe be unfamiliar with.
Right.
But they keep down this road. I think if they play middle of the road and the offense is somewhat close to what they were last season, it's going to be a really, really big year for Titans and the Titans fans. Yeah. Me
Lucas.
included.
Yeah, no doubt. Time to play the Eagles, my friend. Let's play this thing out. 3HL. Oh, there you go. I love that bass riff right there, man.
Such a good song.
One of these nights. Well, one of these afternoons.
I won't sing for you. So.
Please sing.
No, I won't.
All right, 3HL. They may sing. Stick around. You'll find out next. What day is it, Blaine?
I'm getting paranoid. Is it Tuesday? Okay. Happy Tuesday! Peace!
Titans fix? Just ask Alexa to play 104.5 The Zone, your home for Titans football and the flagship for Titans radio. 104.